guys, we're back with Art of Darkness. Had a bit of an unfortunate error last stream. I realized when looking through the VOD, I guess I accidentally had my screen locked, and so even though it looked like it was, recording, it was recorded in the opposite format. And I thought there'd be a way to get that changed in editing, but I couldn't figure it out. And any of the guides for rotating it in the editor were for like an old version, so I still haven't figured that out. Might just because I was doing it on a mobile device and for whatever reason it wasn't showing up. So I'll need to actually get on my computer for the first time in about a week. So we have the February set from the sigh here. It's a bit of a different departure than her usual style, but I really enjoy it. I like the colors here. But yeah, and it looked like for the March one as well, it's a bit of a different than her usual take. So we had done part one of this previously, and I just really didn't like her writing that much, although I do appreciate her sort of sense of curation. So I'm not sure how much in depth we'll read, or at least when it comes to these sort of overarching sections, but we will go ahead and go over this opening passage. What would your good do if evil didn't exist? What would the earth look like if all the shadows disappeared? Humans are fallible and flawed, from the literal flesh of our hearts decaying slowly over the course of our lifetimes, to the metaphorical battles of good and evil waged within those hearts. Anger, jealousy, vengeance, sickness and disease, violence and conflict, grief, loss, and death. Delving into these depths, the darker side of the human condition is often painful and messy undertaking, and in peeking at humanity's fragile underbelly, we're unfortunately not going to like what we see. But if we want to understand and fully appreciate who we are in the world around us, we must confront and come to terms with all aspects of our wildly beautiful and terrible human hearts. Just as all of life's excitement and joy is found in art, so too can we glimpse all of life's potential darkness within the sordid treasure chest of art history's greatest masterpieces. We can unearth all the horror and sadness pertaining to existence, life's most difficult questions. You can look to the canvas to see each and every one of these questions writ large, and if our internal battles with morality and philosophy weren't enough to contend with, there's the reality of our physical bodies breaking down, bit by bit, day by day. Our works inspired by or reflecting upon sickness and disease can provide both a refuge as well as insight into our understanding of the human body. Related themes of health, care, and connection. Perhaps in witnessing these visions of corporeal distress, we can begin to access new pathways of compassion and empathy. transformative or emancipatory ways we challenge and redefine what society expects from our bodies. Those wily yet utterly predictable human bodies, no matter how well we take care of them, they've all got an expiry date. Artists have forever found terror, beauty, and awe in the concept of death. Many scenes of depicting reflecting upon the dead and dying, or scenes of grief and loss, is a powerful way for them to examine and reckon with mortality. Gazing upon this art is one way for us to acknowledge our own mortality as well. It's no surprise that something so imminent but so profoundly unknown has been represented in such a variety of creative ways throughout history and continues to unnerve and intrigue us today. We are good people, right? We do the right thing, don't we? Probably don't consider ourselves evil, and in a similar vein, it's likely that just as we believed when we were children, many of us are still quite confident that we're going to live forever. The truth is, we're all capable of hurtful behavior and destructive acts. Every one of us is destined to fail at some point. There's no other way to say it, friends. We're born to die. So what do? Stay open and receptive. For the following works of art reflect less popular, more unpleasant, and problematic aspects of a human experience. Let them into that human heart of yours. If for nothing else, the potent emotional response it will evoke. File it away. Let your subconscious deconstruct and decode it over time. Just look. That's it. Can't turn away from the ugliness of violence, suffering, and death. It's all part of who we are. And we are all human, aren't we? Ailments and infections. Works of John Joseph Hormon frequently depict vivid moments in private houses, inns, and courtyards. In this instance, a surgeon's house where a patient has come for treatment. While the surgeon heads up this case, his apprentice has begun the manual treatment of an aggrieved-looking patient with an incision just below the armpit. They be lancing the bubo. A bubonic plague. Nearby awaits a fretful woman, who may be either a distressed relative or the next patient agonizing over her own condition. Now she's observed the sort of medical care she is about to receive. The free-spirited, independent-thinking French painter, engraver, and illustrator Francois Nicolas Clifford was an artist who in the initial years of his vocation was torn between his rigorous academic training and a desire to embrace more romantic subject matter. Encouraged by poet and novelist Victor Hugo, Clifford launched his new career as an illustrator with works for Hugo's Toilers of the Sea, a new edition of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This horrific romance of this allegorical scene, Clifford presents a dramatic contrast between the placid city of Paris and the whirling, spectral cloud of death which hovers over it during a cholera outbreak in 1865. The works of Paris-trained artist Richard Tennant Cooper are as beautiful as they are dramatic and disturbing, and owe much to the decadent movement. Which is one I've not heard of, the decadent movement. But if this is to be an example of the overall style of that movement, I do really enjoy it. Both aesthetically, with its excess and delight and perversion, we may call it a bit extra today, and thematically, with their depiction of fear of disease, in particular sexually transmitted disease, and the trend of depicting women as temptresses encouraging sins of uncleanliness and sexual indulgence. An official war artist, Cooper created symbolic paintings depicting death and disease, tuberculosis, syphilis, breast cancer, and diphtheria after returning from the First World War before moving on to commercial work. Primarily a sculptor, Barbara Hepworth called her drawings surrogate sculptures. Some of her more prominent and stimulating drawings were depictions of surgery created during a pivotal time for her career. Hepworth came to the subject matter when one of her children was diagnosed with osteomyelitis. She was invited by the orthopedic surgeon to sketch his operations. For 2 years, Hepworth watched various surgeries, describing in letters how some days she would spend up to 10 hours observing in the operating theater, resulting in a series of almost 100 hospital drawings. Thanks to this experience, the artist revealed that she believed there to be a close affinity between the work and approach of both physicians and surgeons and painters and sculptors, both of whom seek to restore and to maintain the beauty and grace of the human mind and body. Rodney Dixon grew up in Northern Ireland during the troubled years of civil disorder. So, like, the troubles that engulfed the country. Having drawn and painted since childhood, he reacted to his early experience by considering the futility and hypocrisy of war through art. The artist is best known for his large, thickly executed oil paintings, which have a physical presence so visceral that they confuse the question and blur the line between what is abstract and what is real. Some of these paintings appear as though they are executed very quickly, but most were painted, scraped over, and painted again. In Sickness, we see a grim, dimly lit, narrow room, almost subterranean in nature, that perfectly captures the misery of being alone and unwell. St. Charles Bell was a Scottish surgeon and anatomist who also possessed, according to one friend, a little too much ambition and a small degree of misanthropy, particularly towards persons of your own profession. In other words, apparently the good doctor's behavior and character sometimes got in the way of his career. Bell published a series of anatomical works based on his own drawings. In Ophistonos, in a patient suffering from tetanus, we observe a state of severe hyperextension in which an individual's head, neck, and spinal column enter into a bridging or arching position. This extreme arch pose is an extrapyramidal effect and is caused by the spasm of the axial muscles along the spinal column. K-based artist William Uthmolen was diagnosed as suffering from Alzheimer's disease in '95 and died in 2007. His last works, The Lake Pictures, documenting the gradual decay of his mind, serve as a rare glimpse of the inner life of a patient suffering from Alzheimer's disease, with the technique increasingly affected by the symptoms of dementia as they unfold. The images show the gradual modification of his perception of the world, both of his external environment and of his psychic universe. Through them, we share his terrible feeling of dereliction, progressive isolation, and loss of self-control. Tsukioka Yoshitoshi is widely recognized as the last great master of the ukiyo-e genre of woodblock printing and painting. He is regarded as one of the form's greatest innovators. His career spanned two eras, the last years of the Edo period and the first years of modern Japan following the Meiji Restoration. Although the artist was interested in new things from the rest of the world over time, he became increasingly concerned with the loss of many aspects of traditional culture, among them traditional woodblock printing. Created for Yoshitoshi's postal news series, Yoshino Tomoyo, who stayed with her leper husband, Tomozo, illustrates an honorable wife compassionately tending to the leprosy-stricken husband. There is considerable stigma and shame attached to leprosy, where, according to Buddhist lore, the disease was believed to result from wrongdoings committed in past lives. Recent studies show that cancer is not a modern disease as once thought. Signs of the disease were found in the oil panel transposition of Michelangelo's statue, The Night, painted by Michel di Rodolfo del Ghirlandaio, also known as Michel Tosini, in the 16th century. A nude woman reclines uncomfortably, ideal in neither pose nor body, at least by classical standards. We blame the beauty industry for unreasonable standards, but it sure goes back much further than that. Her breasts are unsymmetrical, left appearing smaller than the right and showing signs of nipple retraction. According to the authors of these studies, this is suggestive that she had the disease. The nightmarish ambience of the painting suggests an encroaching darkness, and the model's countenance seems to agree. German expressionist George Gross became famous for his satirical drawings and paintings of Berlin in the 1920s. The funeral melds together aspects of both futurism and cubism in order to illustrate an urban city funeral procession as a hellish landscape, populated by obscure and grotesque attendants, and displays of bleakness, cynicism, and disquiet that pervaded the times. The recurrent theme of disease and an ever-mounting death toll finds expression in this apocalyptic and deeply pessimistic painting. Doris Zinkaisen was a painter, commercial artist, and theater designer. Her artistic career started out in a much more fashionable and posh place than where it would eventually take her. Well known for her society and equestrian portraiture and for scenes reflecting the lifestyle of the upper class at the time, she was commissioned by the British Red Cross and St. John Joint War Organization to record their work in Northwest Europe, and was one of the few women war artists to be sent overseas. Her work as a war artist included 3 days at the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in April 1945, immediately after its liberation. One of a group of works produced by Zinkaisen during this time, this one shows the human laundry, which consisted of about 20 beds in a stable where German nurses and captured soldiers cut the hair of the inmates, bathed them, and applied anti-louse powder before they were transferred to an impoverished hospital run by the Red Cross. David Warnekitz created a body of work that spanned photography, painting, we believe had a work by him in the, I don't know, I guess that's a different Polish artist that also used a diverse range of mediums. Painting, film, music, sculpture, writing, and activism, Warnauskevich saw the outsider as his true subject. Queer and later diagnosed as HIV positive, he became an impassioned advocate for people with AIDS when an ever increasing number of friends, lovers, and strangers were dying due to what he perceived as government inaction. This photograph was taken in late May 1991 at Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, while Warnowskevich and his friend Marion Schema took a road trip around the American Southwest. Cynthia Carr, Warnowskevich's biographer, describes how the photograph came to be. He had been there before and knew exactly where he wanted to stage this. Going to dig a hole, he told her, and I'm going to lie down. Lavinia Fontana was a Bolognese Mannerist painter, best known for his successful portraiture, but also worked in the genre of mythology and religious painting. She is regarded as the first woman career artist in Western Europe, as she relied on commissions for her income and is also thought to be the first woman artist to paint female nudes. But this is a hotly contested topic among art historians. Antonieta Gonzalez, as well as her father, two sisters, and other family members, had hypertrichosis, a rare genetic condition characterized by excessive hair growth on a person's body. This suggested that Lavinia Fontana met young Antonietta and her family in Parma, and in this tender portrait, Antonietta seems to be less than 10 years old. She's dressed in a court dress and showing a handwritten note where she explains a little of her personal history. Contemporary Kenyan artist Wangechi Mutu trained as both sculptor and anthropologist and is noted for work encompassing gender, race, art history, and personal identity, creating complex collages that appear both ancient and from a science fiction future. Mutu's work features recurring mysterious motifs such as masked women and snake-like tendrils. Her pastiche-like practice combines a variety of source material and textures to explore consumerism and excess. In Cancer of the Uterus, her subject is both glamorous and ominous, a goddess born from medical pathology diagram, facial features cut from a magazine, fur, and a heavy application of black glitter to create a distorted face. The dazzling material alludes to the illegal diamond trade in Africa. In Susan Goldstein's Resonance series, she illustrates the sentiment that, while pain is universal, it is also a solitary truth that is frustratingly subjective and resistant to language. To live in pain is to live in isolation. About the work, she notes, in the fall of 2000, I developed severe chronic facial pain. This domination of pain obliterated all sense of an inner self. Resonance began as an effort to structure and distance myself from an overwhelming existence. In the works in the series, MRI grids of the brain document both the origin of pain and a concept of self. Their altered surfaces painted over scratched collage is wrought with struggle. During his tragically brief career, Egon Schiele defined a distinct place for himself in 20th century art with his beguiling, expressionistic, figurative portraiture. In 1918, Schiele began working on a painting that was to become his last, The Family, titled Squatting Couple. This was meant to be a portrait of himself, his wife, and their future child. Perhaps the somber tone and quiet sadness permeating the canvas reflects a presentiment of doom. Before he could finish the piece, his pregnant wife died of the flu. Tragically, the child did not survive, and Schiele himself died of the same disease a mere 3 days later. Depravity and destruction. skip this section. Um, might need to review it. Matters of mortality. The Mourners by Evelyn de Morgan is one in a series of symbolic pictures of war subjects inspired by the artist's distress over the First World War. The horrors of the war and its enormous death toll this brought had a profound effect on de Morgan and her artwork, typically reflective of the artist's penchant for allegorical or symbolic subjects. This work wrought in somber shades amid a barren landscape, lamenting figures in ragged robes, with arms raised in despair and grief, gaze towards a vision of striking vortex of golden light. An original label on the reverse reads, "The unhappy people in their misery are haunted by a vision of past happiness." In Dance Macabre by German painter and engraver Johann Elias Ridinger, 9 women from a variety of social backgrounds gather in order to dance with the dead around 2 skeletons in a coffin. The entire economy of salvation is depicted from the fall through the crucifixion to heaven and hell. This artistic genre of allegory of the late Middle Ages is a comment on the universality of death. No matter one's station in life, the Dance Macabre unites all. This is a theme which has proved remarkably adaptable over the centuries. Some artists have taken the whole Dance of Death and set it in their own time, while others have taken a traditional episode from the Dance of Death and treated it in their idiosyncratic style. Warsaw-born Polish painter, art historian, and archaeologist Marian Woronecki was influenced by Slavic culture and French and German symbolism. He painted fairy tale motifs in the context of the archetypes of the human psyche, and much of his output was governed by the prospect of death, which threatens every person with ruthless cruelty. Matthias Withues was a Dutch painter of city scenes and gloomy wildlife tableaux, many of which incorporate vanitous motifs which are notable for their close-ups of the mysterious flora and fauna and living dark forest undergrowth. In this melancholic graveside scene bathed in dusk's dramatic lighting, we sense in the tangled ivy and weathered stone that time is indeed marching on. As unseen below, the dead slumber. Caitlin McCormick creates work of somber delicacy, ghostly skeletal remains tenderly chained with fragile lace, cotton, glue, and a quickly flashing crochet hook. By utilizing media and practices inherited from departed relatives, the artist aims to generate emblems of a diminishing bloodline, representative of both the persistence of memory and the significance of cloth and thread in the realm of human experience. In 2007, Damien Hirst made headlines with a work consisting of 8,601 of the world's finest diamonds, encrusting the platinum cast of a human skull from the mid-1800s, complete with the skull's original real human teeth. Titled "For the Love of God," apparently in response to a question posed by the artist's mother, For the love of God, what are you going to do next? Her fascination with skulls began at a young age. At 16, the artist began visiting the anatomy department of Leeds Medical School to draw the cadavers. Death is just something that inspires me, not something that pulls me down, Hurst once explained. Every day your relationship with death changes. Since it was first exhibited in 2007, For the Love of God has become one of the world's most widely recognized works of contemporary art. It represents the artist's continued interest in mortality and notions of value. A versatile artist who practiced in many genres, John von Kessel specialized in small-scale pictures of subjects culled from the natural world, including studies of animals and insects, both living and dead, still lifes of fruit, bouquet, and garland, marine and paradise landscapes, allegorical compositions, and genre scenes. His brightly colored, minutely detailed paintings on panel or copper were highly prized by connoisseurs and collectors. Vanitas, the loose category of artwork that illustrates the transience of life, the futility of pleasure, and the certainty of death, often featuring conspicuous allegory in the form of dusty skulls, decaying flowers, and the dwindling sands of hourglasses, offered an artful pretext to paint still lifes of opulent objects behind a veneer of mortality. U.S. painter, printmaker, and teacher Walter Kuhlman was a noted figure in the post-war Bay Area expressionist movement. Based in San Francisco, he practiced an abstract style of rugged forms and discordant colors that evolved into a softer but equally enigmatic figurative manner with symbolist undertones. The image of the human skull has appeared in several of Kuhlman's paintings. Here a hunched, skull-headed figure stares at a floating flower garland, death yearning for life. Sirin Nesat is a contemporary Iranian visual artist, best known for her work in photography, video, and film. Neshat's series, Our House is on Fire, stems from the death and destruction she saw in Cairo, including the corpses of young men and women with little children with tags on their feet. When she traveled there to work in 2012, like many of Neshat's works, the series consists of portraits and details of hands and feet, capturing emotions that are at once individual and universal, exploring how people deal with pain on both a personal and national level. Russian romantic landscape painter Maxim Vorbiev specialized in picturesque seascapes and peaceful countryside views, as well as architectural monuments and war scenes. The staggering loss depicted in oak fractured by lightning is markedly different. An allegory on his wife's death, this emotionally charged vision captures the shock and anguish of losing a loved one. A bright bolt of opalescent lightning streaks down from the gloom of stormy skies, shattering an old oak tree in two. It is perhaps the perfect metaphor to express the howling desolation and heart-wrenching pain of the sudden death of someone you love. Those who have suffered terrible loss know well the crushing feelings of despair that suffuse all of the colorless days that follow. In this work of German artist Oskar Schwindscher, he eerily captures the unyielding and overwhelming emotional weight under which the bereaved suffer. Death is rendered a bit player behind the massive lightless stone, faceted with myriad aspects of grief's crushing gravity, relentlessly pressed upon the one who is left behind. Painted by Pablo Picasso in distinctive Cubist style, still life with skull leaks and picture draws on those centuries-old artistic traditions of memento mori and vanitas, revealing the transience of life and inevitability of death by placing ordinary, everyday vegetables and household objects alongside a symbol of mortality, such as the ubiquitous skull. Critics believe that Picasso was particularly preoccupied by this type of still life art in the wake of the Second World War, during which so many people lost their lives. Like 17th century Vanitas paintings, Picasso's artwork invites viewers to think about where death fits into our daily existence. It reminds us that life goes on, but death is never far behind. Clear metaphor for life in occupied France, where death, once a remote abstraction, sharply came into focus. Jean-Michel Basquiat was an African-American artist who reinvigorated the New York art scene of the 80s with his neo-expressionist paintings and drawings. Writing with Death came towards the end of Basquiat's life and features some common themes, which ran through most of his career. It is an example of how the artist combined inspiration, wherein Basquiat connects to his Afro-Caribbean background while also using influence from European art. Writing with Death is one of the last paintings, painted before his death in '88. This fact, coupled with its disturbing imagery, suggests it represents his opinion on the state. Okay, that's a bit of a leap. Contemporary artist Susan Jamison's delicate iconography spans several media, including painting, drawing, textile-based sculpture, and installation. However, she is best known for the lush, luminous imagery of her intricate egg tempera paintings, steeped in ritualistic and mythological associations. In No Fear, a needle-pricked skull surrounded by flowers reminds us, via a swirling banner, that people living deeply have no fear of death. Paul Cardenas is an author and photographer from Los Angeles. His publications in the field of charnel house and ossuary research have made him a well-known figure in the field of macabre art and art history. For his series Heavenly Bodies, Cardenas was able to gain unprecedented access to various religious institutions and reveals an intriguing visual history of the veneration in European churches and monasteries of bejeweled and decorated skeletons. Mixed media artist Rebecca Reeves' work is intricate and enthralling, delicately wrought with thin black thread and fraught with powerful piercing themes of family and loss. Some pieces work to contain and preserve their contents, poignant heirlooms or other meaningful objects, while others encapsulate their interior in a suffocating struggle of sorrow and grief. That brings us to part 3. Got a small bit of time left over, so maybe can check out the section I skipped a little bit. Swiss painter Henry Fuseli began his career in England. As a history painter, his expressionistic style was composed of a unique blend of influences. German Romanticism, the monumental vision of Michelangelo, and the various and physiological exaggerations. Of the 16th century Italian Mannerists, Fuseli's own pessimism and fascination with the extremes of human passion are evident in this emotionally charged scene of a mythical family viewed from Sophocles' Oedipus at Colonus. The tragedy of a father's curse is played out through the extreme gestures and contortions of the four figures. Polynices, head twisted away from his body, has come to ask his father's support in overthrowing his brother. Eteocles, enraged at his son's request, Oedipus points in reproach and imposes his dreadful curse that each son would die at the hands of the other. Ismene, in despair, kneels at her father's knees. Antigone is highlighted above the terrible drama as she reaches out to protect her brother with one hand and restrain Oedipus with the other. Her heroic gesture, as with much else in this particular family's history, is futile. I'm gonna skip the first one. I don't really see anything there worth noting. Italian Baroque artist Elisabetta Sirani, a significant and influential artist of the Bolognese school of painting, was thought of as one of the most learned, innovative, and successful artists of the period. An independent painter by the age of 19, Sirani ran her family's workshop. When her father became incapacitated by gout, she supported her parents, three siblings, and herself entirely through her art. Sirani advocated for both women painters and women subjects during her short life and opened a painting school where she trained many women, including her younger sisters. Righteous championing of women and their stories is powerfully demonstrated in Timoclea killing her rapist, wherein Sirani quite literally gives us the patriarchy turned on its head. Thebes resident Timoclea, after being raped by the captain of the Thracian forces, tossed the assailant into a well in her garden and resolutely rained heavy rocks down on his head until he was dead. His portrayal of war and suffering with bloodied rabbit marionettes, center stage by Portuguese-born British artist Paulo Rigo, was a response to a press photograph published in the early stages of the Iraq War. The photograph featured a screaming girl in a white dress running from an explosion, while a woman and a baby remained stationary behind her. Compositions combining animal heads and masks, young girls and children toys, all of which appear and will recur throughout Rigo's work, which often invokes the imagery of fairy tales with sinister or gothic overtones and plays on viewers' notion of innocence. Work of contemporary sculptor Darla Jackson is an exploration of human emotions, feelings translated to recognizable visual objects and combined with other elements to create symbolic dualities. The end result is a familiarity revealing some compelling and insightful peculiarities. This four-bird knuckle duster, an implement of fairy tale violence, both cute and intimidating, offers ideas of protection and self-defense. According to this artist, the title, "This Will Hurt Me More Than It Hurts You," is a reference to... Okay. Are they... Highly influential among the late 19th century French avant-garde circle, and noted for singular and intriguing artistic style evoking a mysterious world and melancholic fantasy, Odilon Redon created imaginative scenes which are frequently explorations in light and darkness. In perversity, a face emerges from the murky shadows and twists languidly over one shoulder with an indefinable yet decidedly decadent expression that nonetheless provokes unease. You don't really want to know what's on this figure's mind, or do you? And I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with that one. this is one dolly I have not seen. Don't know why they didn't have that at the. There's actually like I think it's Tampa Bay. There's a museum that's solely a dolly museum, and that was definitely not one of the ones they had on display. Face of War is a surreal vision of trauma and horror and is frequently interpreted as premonition of the Second World War as it was painted in the period after the Spanish Civil War and just before war broke out in Spain again. The focus of this painting is a disembodied face hovering against a barren desert landscape with identical faces filling mouth and eye holes within the optical illusion. Skulls are multiplying in the face holes to infinity, thus illustrating feelings of eternal continuity of death and horror. Surrounding the face are serpents creeping around the empty and abandoned landscape. The emptiness and pessimism of this painting reveals the real sentiments of people exhausted by the never-ending destruction of war in Europe. And we are pretty much out of time, so we're just gonna, well, hold on, we'll give this one a moment. There's a lot to unpack in this scene. Academic painter Thomas Couture was best known for his portraits, historical genre pictures such as Romans during the Decadence, which created a sensation at the Salon of 1847, combining soft 18th century coloring and the rigid pomposity of 19th century classicism. In this work concerned a debauched ruling class of abandoning themselves to vice. Couture appeared to his contemporaries to have succeeded, combining antiquity and the present along with creating an allegorical criticism of the government in 19th century France. I don't know why each time we've looked at it with that face there really stuck out to me. Have expected her to say that the artist included himself there. Okay, and that was actually the last one of that section we kind of skipped over. So we'll probably pick back up with part 3 tomorrow. Not sure. Well, there must be more. I'm not sure how many parts actually. At least, yeah, there's looks like 4 parts. So it looks like we've got 2 more days left here with this book. And I think, like I said last time, well, I'm not sure how excited I am to get into them. Well, I think I still am, but just given that I really, her writing doesn't, I'm still not a fan of her writing, although I do appreciate her curation. So we do have a couple more of these. I'm not sure if we'll be jumping into them straight away after this one. But so yeah, that will end today, and we'll pick up part 3 tomorrow.